player on C9 in Valorant. Very successful team, one of the top teams in the world right now in Valorant. So you might be asking yourself, why is he on Coach's Corner? Why did we bring him on a show directed towards coaches? Well, there are two reasons. Number one, Cloud9 Valorant's team does not currently have a coach. And number two, the person most closely resembling the role of a coach would be this man right here, Shinobi, who plays for Cloud9 but is also the in-game leader. And as I learned offline before coming on to this interview, Shinobi, we might as well call you the de facto coach based on the roles that you do behind the scenes. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So basically, you are the coach of Cloud9 Valor. I mean, I feel like we should talk to your superiors, get a bump in pay here. Like, you should have two salaries, as a pro and as a coach.
Would be nice. Definitely would be nice.
We're going to dive into it all because, and really the big reason that we wanted to have you on the show is we wanted to understand the role of an in-game leader. We're going to get to that and also what you do behind the scenes to prepare when a team doesn't necessarily have a coach. And if you have any questions in Twitch chat, I am monitoring. You can feel free to throw your questions in the chat. We're going to be here for about a half hour. Let's start with this past weekend, though. Cloud9 was not in action in the 30 Bomb GG tournament. The mandatory cup was happening in EU as well. So how was your weekend, man? What'd you do?
It was good. Honestly, not much. Just watched the tournament. Just took a couple days off. We actually practiced on Saturday. We practiced yesterday as well, actually. But other than that, just watched some of the tournament. Just chilled out. Took my dog out. Yeah, nothing major.
What's your dog's name?
It's Karma.
Karma,
She's
nice.
She's a Pomeranian lab. It's a
Love
strange mix, but
yeah, that is. I haven't heard that much before.
yeah.
Nice name though, Karma. So
Yeah.
so you guys didn't decide to go into this match. I mean, we saw a lot of the top teams, of course, Sentinels, TSM, etc., competing in this tournament.
Mhm.
What more generally, what is your thought process and the team's thought process in the fact that, I mean, there really is a tournament happening every weekend that you could participate in. So like,
Mhm.
what is your philosophy on like frequency? How often do you guys look to compete, especially when there's tournaments like these that aren't in the official Ignition Series events?
Mhm. I think a lot of it just comes down to like writing a fine line of like you want to play, I think, in as many tournaments as you can so you can try things and just get match experience as a team. But you also don't want to play to the point of like burnout because it's definitely like a real thing that you can get burnt out and play too much. So yeah, we got our schedule for this month, and we just kind of like felt that for this tournament in particular, it was better for us to practice and just not go as hard as we would if we were playing a tournament and just kind of like observe other teams and get a feel for what's going on right now. But in general, I think playing you want to play a lot of tournaments, but you don't want to get burnt out, I guess would be the easiest way to explain that.
So it's good that you decided, or you and your
Mhm.
teammates decide, you know what, let's take a weekend off, let's relax and
Mhm.
recharge. Is there something to be said about, you're watching these tournaments, so you're seeing Sentinels and TSM in the finals, and yeah, this isn't a major prize pool tournament, this isn't an Ignition Series event, but is there something to be said about you guys watching these tournaments and maybe picking up a few things? Like, would you say that you learned more about your opponents in future tournaments by watching this tournament?
To some extent, I would say for sure. I mean, a lot of it, like from watching Sentinels, watching TSM, it seemed like a lot of TSM did a few things that were unexpected, I guess, or different than what I saw them do in the PAX tournament. But Sentinels pretty much playing roughly the same, maybe some slight agent variations, like they were playing Reyna on Haven. But I feel like we have a pretty good idea of like how most of the teams play in the region. But it's obviously nice to watch them play and sit back and just kind of observe instead of like you know, getting it hands on, like we would if we had played the tournament, I guess. But
How do you think top teams view these tournaments? And I'm not taking anything away from tournament organizers. It's a very
mhm,
difficult task to put on these kind of tournaments, let alone bring in the top teams. So I'm commending them. But
mhm,
as a player, especially when there's not major prize pools on the line and we don't have this like League of Legends style
mhm,
structure where there's a regular season. So like these lower tier tournaments, so to speak, don't have as much
mhm,
pressure to them, right? Where do they rank? If you were to say scrims are here
mhm,
and major tournaments are here, where would these minor tournaments rank in terms of how you view them?
mhm. I think for us, like we want to win every tournament that we play, obviously. But I think there's obviously value to be gained in losing sometimes, and also trying things. Like you don't want to, things that you do in practice aren't always going to translate to matches, and you need to experiment. There's a lot of, especially in this game, there's a lot of trial and error, figuring out which agents work, what comps work against other comps, all these like small little like variations and nuances that can be a big factor in the game. So I think for us, like with the Ignition series, I would say right now those are like our top priority. We want to win those above every other tournament. Not to say we don't want to win the smaller ones, but I guess we're more like willing to lose for the sake of learning and improving in like the smaller tournaments than say the Ignition series. But everything that we play in is going to be a learning process. So as long as we're trying to progress forward, I guess that's all we really can ask for.
So what did you make of some of the things we saw this weekend? Like, for example, we didn't see 100% pick rate for Cypher in the 30 bomb GG tournament. Teams were experimenting, right? We saw a 71% pick rate on Split. I didn't do that off the top of my head. I looked it up on websites. But what did you make of some of the compositions that you saw, some of the experimentation that you saw from teams?
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of it comes down to the meta shifts and just like people playing Jet a lot more now, especially on Split. You see Jet like very, very highly picked. And I think these like small changes in like agent pool and just like what people are valuing currently in the game is going to have a big impact on which agents are played. I still think Cypher's really valuable. His camera is like it's really insane. It's like the best part of his kit, but I could see people not wanting to use them or they value smokes or flashes. Like as the game goes on, there's going to be more ways that people figure out how to deal with certain agents. So you'll see, a flux and like a change in which agents are being played. I would say for the tournament though, nothing like super surprising. I already know TSM when they play Split, they don't really like to play the Cypher as it was, and I don't think they played it either in the finals against Sentinels. But yeah, nothing too crazy.
When you have a weekend off like this, do you keep an eye on every region? Like, are you watching the tournament in Japan, watching it, the one in EU, the Mandatory Cup? Like, how important is it for you to be watching VOD across the world, not just your competitors in NA?
I mean, I watch when there's like time. I would say I don't prioritize it necessarily. I watched the Mandatory GG Cup. I didn't actually see the tournament that was going on in Japan. I might watch back at some point and check out the VOD, see what they're doing. It's nice to keep up and see kind of what different regions are doing because the meta is going to be somewhat similar, but the agents that people favor, like for instance NA, everyone really loves Phoenix in North America. You don't see it like at all in Europe. So I think like the nuances and the changes between regions, I think you can definitely pick apart and gain some value from watching other regions. But I don't prioritize it like for strategy purposes. I just kind of see more like some cool things that they're doing or things like that.
It was crazy I did a little bit of a comparison of the agent pick rates across both tournaments. And of course, the 30 bomb GG will be more experimental. It wasn't as big a tournament for NA as the Mandatory Cup was for EU, right? Like Sage was picked 87% in NA versus 68% in EU, so a lot less. And Omen was picked a lot more in NA, or in EU, I should say, than NA. Like, what are, more generally, when you're watching these different regions, in particular NA versus EU, because that's a hot topic right now, what are some of the composition or meta differences or even style of play differences that you notice?
I think some of the teams in Europe are they have some cool tactics like NIP and that Bonk team. They definitely they have like some unorthodox things that they like to do. When I watch G2, they're obviously an insane team, but they play a lot more off of like the micro decisions, kind of like working the map, getting picks, and then playing out the mid round. I think Omen as an agent, like I think NA teams, I mean, people are playing Omen a lot from what I've seen in practice and just watching some of the tournaments, but it's just a different play style. Like Omen and Brim give you different things, so a lot of teams they're gonna choose one or the other usually in their comp, especially because like I said, NA they love the Phoenix, but yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's hard to really say like why EU is like picking certain agent comps. I'd have to watch a lot more and kind of like extrapolate, but I think it comes down to just playstyle preferences and taking advantage of the kit, right? That's like probably the most important thing. Omen's going to offer you flexibility that you can't do with Brimstone, and likewise, Brimstone's going to allow you to execute in certain ways that you can't with Omen because of like the way that the smokes are deployed. Like they're not instant, right? You have to like throw one, throw another. Brimstone, you can kind of just like plop them down on the map all at once. So
There's a question in chat here that I'd like to ask you, and feel free to throw your questions in Twitch chat. I'm definitely monitoring. Yes, Simo, I will get to your question. Just hang tight, okay? You don't gotta blow up chat here, all right, Simo? We got you. Don't worry, bud. This one will transition to the phase tournament. This is why I want to ask
Okay.
it. This one from K9 MMI said, would a 3 Sentinel agent be meta in the future, and would this game turn into RB6 more about checking and wasting utility? Obviously, talking about the fact that Killjoy is going to enter the game this week as the third Sentinel along with Sage and Cypher. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that can happen. Killjoy is going to be added in a day or two. I think the 3 Sentinel meta is definitely something that's possible. I hope it doesn't get to that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think you could definitely see like on certain maps, like on Split, if there's like a huge value for like defense, like a super defense sided map, you could see maybe if a team knows they're going to start on defense on that map, they go for the 3 Sentinel setup and just try to lock it down, get like 10, 11 rounds. Because I think it's definitely doable. If you had a comp like that and your goal is like, hey, we're going to win the CT side here, then when you switch to attack, sorry about that.
Oh, so is that Pops there? Just walked by?
Yeah,
Want to say hello?
It is, yeah.
Shinobi Senior, cool.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so then
yeah,
on attack, if you know that you're going to play defense and you really want to have that strong defense-oriented lineup, I can definitely see a world where that's possible. I don't think you'll see it right away. I think I have to see Killjoy in action, right? All we've seen is like the clips, but her kit seems good. I don't know how overpowered it'll be or if it's going to be overpowered, but yeah, I think just from like a philosophy standpoint, I think that's probably the idea behind 3 Sentinels. I have to see it in action though to really know for sure if it would play out like that or not.
We will see it in action very soon, actually, because the FaZe Clan Valorant Invitational is this weekend. And I hadn't heard this officially, but from all intents and purposes, Killjoy, which will be released prior to that, will be in this tournament and will be a playable agent in this competitive tournament with $50,000 on the line. And this means that you and other competitors and teams in this tournament will have upwards of 24, 36 hours to scrim on this agent?
Yep.
So how do you I know this is not a new situation.
Yep.
But it's never fun to be put into a situation. Even though everyone is in the same situation, you got to be thinking, man, like let's look at this objectively. So you, as the in-game leader of this team, as the de facto coach of this team, how do you approach this challenge? How do you solve this problem?
I mean, a lot of it's just going to come down to testing the agent as much as we can before the tournament. I'll say that I don't really think it's a good precedent set that like Riot or like they're kind of doing the Valve treatment with the game where they drop a big update and then it's like the next day there's like, oh, here's our big tournament. Have fun, like play the agent. Like I think the reasoning, well, I don't know for sure, but I hope that the reasoning is that they want to see people playing the agent in like a big event. They want pros to play the agent on stream because it'll make people like, want to play the agent, try it out in pubs and things like that. But yeah, I don't really like that it's being implemented so early before a tournament, but it is what it is. We have to make do with it. So we're going to, do our best to adapt. That's like the name of the game. So it's going to come down. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's going to come down to a lot of just trial and error, right? Just got to test the agent out beforehand, maybe play a couple scrims with it if we can. It'll be interesting to see if teams are going to actually pull it out. It's definitely risky to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if people, give it a try. I'm sure you'll see the agent picked in the tournament.
I think Riot would hope that too. It does make sense, right? They want the general populace to see this in action at the best level and say, hey, I want to try this agent. Of course, from a marketing perspective, makes total sense. Okay, as much as you're willing to tell me, I know that you don't want to give away too many trade secrets, but I am curious. So the agent comes out, you have access to the agent, right? So like, what are some of the decisions that you're making? Maybe you're looking at some of the compositions or some of the maps. You already know what the kit is. So where might you see Killjoy effective, or how would you do some preliminary first tests with Killjoy in what comps on what maps? Like, take me through some of that process if you can.
Yeah, I think looking at the agent just as a sentinel, right? It has a lot of like weird like synergy as like you could set up crossfires for yourself with the turret. Again, like I don't know how strong we don't know how strong the turret actually is or the alarm bot, like how they actually function. Besides, the small clip we saw in the little like teaser that they put out. But I think saying it's a Cypher replacement is a little bit of a stretch, but I could definitely see like a 2 Sentinel meta come into play where like well, obviously there already is with Sage and Cypher, but I could see a world where Killjoy and Cypher kind of play off each other, either playing opposite sides, locking it down, or playing together in some capacity. Um, like I said at the beginning of the interview, I think Cypher's camera is just way too good. I don't think Killjoy, like what you get from her kit, doesn't negate the strength of the camera. But I think there's some value. There's definitely value in her as a defensive agent. So you could see her probably played on like split or on bind, locking down the A site. There's like some weird spots you could probably put the turret that make it like you have to full commit to destroying the turret or fighting somebody. I think that's like where the annoyance will come from the agent. But again, you have to see the turret. The turret's like super weak and does like 5 damage. It's not going to be, game breaking. I don't think it'll be game breaking anyway. But if it does like 50 damage a shot, it makes the turret like insane, right? It's something you have to prioritize destroying. But if it's like kind of just something that gives you info, then you could see it maybe replace Cypher. But like I said, I think the camera's just too good.
I like to think that the Nano Swarm is sort of like the upgrade from the Cypher Cage. It's almost like Cypher wanted the Nano Swarm for the Cypher Cage, but like had a deadline and couldn't get there.
Yeah.
So like, and he looks at Killjoy and is like, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, the Molly does seem really, really, really strong as well, being able to set it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure application-wise, like, I hope that it doesn't just act as like a better Brimstone Molly as well on attack, where you just like plant the bomb and drop the Molly on it and run away, and then when they're trying to defuse, you just like detonate it. I hope it doesn't turn into that, but we'll have to see when the agent goes live. But expect the worst and hope for the best, I guess, is the best way to put it for the agent.
So Cloud9 will be in action at the FaZe Clan Valorant Invitational. That's happening this weekend. All the major teams that you would expect in NA will be there as well. I want to transition this conversation to your role on Cloud9. Cloud9 is one of the few top organizations in NA in particular that do not currently employ a coach on their Valorant team. You are the in-game leader of this team. You also do coaching duties, or what coaches would normally do behind the scenes. So I want to dive into that. Like how, first of all, take me through even your entire career from CS, etc. How long have you been in that in-game leader role? And when did you first realize that I want to be an in-game leader when I'm playing these games?
Honestly, I think since I was like a professional player back in 2015. I've basically been in-game leading ever since then. With the first team I played on, when we kind of like came up together, rose through the ranks, played with like Vice, who we've been playing with, and Sick as well. He was someone that we were on that team together. And I took up in-game leading just because like I like to kind of like when I play the game, I want to like nerd out and like find all the like the weird little like gimmicks, not gimmicks, but like the quirks of the game, and just kind of figure out at the base level like how the game works. And I want to really break it down to its most basic element, right? And I think having that kind of mind for the game is something that benefits me as a caller. But yeah, I've been calling basically my entire career since I can remember.
So when you say calling during the game, I think people have a general idea of how comms work in teams in a game, but specifically for the in-game leader, what are some of and you can explain to me like I'm 5, like what are some of the things that you're doing and specifically telling your teammates in the game?
Well, so I think there is a distinction between like calling and being an in-game leader, because you're not just like, anybody can just like be like, go A, let's go B, right? Like in-game leading is a lot of, reading the game, trying to, set up the gameplay where you're like conditioning the other team and really trying to exploit things that you pick up on, right, through tendencies and things like that, whether that's like preparation you do before the game, or if you're, just reading and adapting in the game, right? That's like something that comes down to being an in-game leader, but also being like, without sounding cliche, but being a leader of men, right? Like you have to guide your teammates to winning the game, right? Like you're the person that they look to when things aren't working, or if they need the answers, right? You're the guy that they usually call upon to have the solutions. So I think that's like a big aspect of being an in-game leader as well. You have to, instill confidence in your teammates, right? Make sure they have to believe in themselves, right? For you to call and to win efficiently, right? That's like I think a really big aspect of it as well. But like duty wise, like things I do on a day to day, when comparing it to a coach, it's like setting up the VOD reviews, going in, making sure that we have like a game plan every day when we practice, like having goals that we want to achieve, whether that's like something really small or a bigger goal, right? Anytime we're trying to practice or playing a tournament, you have to have you have to be goal oriented in my opinion to see success, right? If you're not working toward goals, you're not gonna really produce anything substantial. You're not gonna improve. You're not gonna grow as a team. And yeah, I think that's really important.
What are some of the traits
hmm
any in-game leader has? What are the common characteristics of in-game leaders that make them successful?
Definitely charisma, right? You have to be charismatic, like having confidence, like I said. But I think also just work ethic, right? How you approach the game, being open-minded, right? I think something that's an aspect or like an attribute of mine that I think is a strength is like if my teammates have something that they want to do or they see as like something they can exploit on the other team, I don't just like it's one thing to just let them do it, but it's also another thing to enable them and also build the round around the idea that someone else has, right? Like a lot of in-game leaders, I think they fall into this trap of like they're very stubborn about what the right thing to do is in the round, and like not to say it's wrong, but there's some people are hard set on like the idea that they want to go with, and I think being flexible and having like being open-minded to different opinions and also working around them and making the best of the situations, I think is really important as a caller. Like I said, that builds up confidence in the team, right? Everyone needs to believe in each other if you want to win consistently.
Take me through one of the
hmm
unique features of Cloud9 is one of your teammates is
hmm
who many people would consider the best player in the game
hmm
in tens, right?
hmm
People call him Latens James for a reason, right? So like
Yep.
what like take me through leading someone of that
hmm
like that ilk. Like how is that relationship with tens
hmm
and how much of a listener is he? Like how much direction is he willing to take?
He's a great teammate. I've known him a long time. I probably played with him. This was going back 2 years ago, when I first played on a team with him in CS, and I've watched him grow a lot as a person, as a player, like over that time. And the thing with Tens is like he knows he's insane. Like everybody knows that he's insane, but he has like no ego when it comes to the game. Like if you tell him to do something, he's like a really selfless teammate. Like if if he has money, everyone's gonna drop him a gun, right? If he wants it. But he's also like the guy who's like, no, 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 it's fine. Like take the gun. Like I'll do this. Like I don't mind. He doesn't mind using like the greasy guns, like the judge and like getting in people's faces, doing all these like crazy things. But no, when it comes to the game, he's definitely it's a really good teammate. I think if he had a little bit more of a killer instinct, it might actually benefit him a bit, being like more not demanding, but just having more like, I'm gonna do this right now. Like, follow me up. Like, we're winning the round. Like, I'm gonna go do this. He kind of just like, you know, a lot of the things that he does, micro decision wise, it's like definitely a lot of on him, right? Just like those like crazy in the moment, like flying around, getting in people's faces. But a lot of it comes down to me and him really being on the same page about like, hey, like these are kind of like the ways I want you to attack the site, do these things, like go, moving him around with the op a lot is definitely like a relationship between me and him where I tell him kind of where I think he should go, what he can exploit, and obviously he's insane, so he's gonna get the kills if they're there. So, but yeah, overall he's a great teammate. No complaints for sure.
Yeah, I've talked to countless coaches and players
Mhm.
that say, look, like you can only hope to contain tens. You know he's going to get his kill. So you're just hoping to trade 1v1
Yep.
when you're entering a site, for example. So yeah, so take me through that.
hmm
It seems like you're juggling a lot of balls in the air when you're playing, right? You're thinking of emotions, you're thinking of strategy, you have to communicate effectively. Like I don't want to say like let's
hmm
think of a particular round, but like even when you're speaking, like just like
hmm
in terms of effective communication, how does that work for an in-game leader when you have so much to say to your players at once?
hmm I mean, I think a big part of it is just trying to find like the most important things, right? And kind of taking out some of like the filler language, trying to make sure that people are on the same page. I always say this too when we play. Like, if you don't know what's going on, like just ask questions, man. Like, no one's gonna be like people said this when you're a kid in school, right? There's like no stupid questions. It's like the same thing. Like if you don't know exactly what you're supposed to do, you need to ask. Like, and I'll always like, no one's gonna be upset if you don't, you don't remember what's happening or you know what's going on as long as you're asking questions. And that's like a big philosophy thing for us, is making sure like we're on the same page as much as we can. And obviously like the game is really hectic, so there's definitely scenarios where we can make mistakes and we lose track of that. We lose sight of like our communication a little bit. But my job is obviously try to reel that in and make sure that we're like we know what we're doing at all times, and making sure people are aware of what's going on and what we need to be doing. That's like a really big aspect of it for sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to transition now into Simo's question here, and this talks about like just a general agent picking conversation for the IGL. He says, question for Shinobi, what do you think about the IGL agent meta? What are IGLs picking and what feels right? Like, I guess my first question would be, is there a specific collection of agents that better suit an IGL in Valorant?
I don't think so. Like, you can make an argument that like information characters or like maybe your controllers are like the easiest or like the most straightforward, because you're kind of like setting the pace, right? Like a lot of the scenarios, like if you're playing a Brimstone as a caller, when the execute happens, you're like, you know exactly when the smokes are going down and where, right? You can kind of guide your team in that aspect. But you can make the case for Duelist, for Cypher, like any agent really, like I think it has value as an in-game leader. It's just about, for me at least, like the way that I look at being a caller and what agents I play, it's more like what I feel my team needs the most, right? Like, so what I think that people are lacking in their skill set, I try to make up for. And I feel like I'm pretty flexible in that regard. Like, start of the beta, I was playing Sage, I was playing Breach, playing Cypher. Now I'm playing Sova mostly, a lot of Sova. And I don't think my calling really has changed in terms of like how we approach the game. I think, like I said, it's just making sure that you're maximizing your players, right? And so whatever agent you need to play, or that the IGL, without sounding just like giving like a cliche answer, it's just like whatever the in-game leader feels that they can impact the game the most as is what they should play. Like, Phoenix, right? If you're running in first and you're leading in, you're running in, you're flashing, that has value just as much as like Sova, droning or darting and letting your teammates follow up. Like those things are all important, or things that can be valued as an in-game leader.
I feel like we just scratched the surface on this conversation. We're
No,
definitely
for
going to
sure.
have you back
Yeah, definitely.
because this is a very, very meaty topic, but I definitely wanted to ask you about the weekend's events. So just one quick thing before we let you go. This weekend, FaZe Clan Invitational, part of the Ignition series. Just take us how much the team and you are looking forward to it, and how's preparation coming?
It's we're looking forward to playing. We want to play in all these tournaments, so it's definitely great to come back and compete. We want to win, right? That's obviously the expectation. I want to play, teams that we haven't really gotten a chance to play matches against, like T1, some of these other teams. Right? We played Gen G like every tournament except for the last, right? So it's nice to get some variety in who we play, and just seeing the different play styles. I think it's going to be a good event, though. We're looking forward to playing, and hopefully we're going to come out and take the W.
Shinobi is the in-game leader and de facto coach for Cloud9. I will talk to your superiors to get you that second salary. I think you deserve it. You proved it after this particular conversation. And I know Cloud9 is watching because they tweeted out the link, so thank you. But we will definitely have you back here, whether it's Coach's Corner or another interview. Great to talk with you. Shinobi is one of the competitors in Cloud9. Don't forget, FaZe Clan Invitational happening this weekend, the next big Valorant tournament in NA. Shinobi, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
And for all of you watching, thank you very much. Coach's Corner every single Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, where we talk to a different coach from around esports on their philosophies and strategies to lead their teams to success. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.